izbjeglica iz nacističke Njemačke, znanstvenik kojem se sviđao život u Americi. No u lipnju 1945. svojim se Buickom odvezao na sastanak s agentom sovjetske obavještajne službe. Informacija koju mu je predao omogućila je Sovjetima da proizvedu vlastitu atomsku bombu.
Не только мы, а, насколько мне известно, так считают и бывшие руководители американской разведки. В частности, бывший заместитель директора ЦРУ Рэй Клайн сказал, что атомный шпионаж, эта операция по добыванию секретов американской атомной бомбы, является величайшим достижением в истории всех разведок.
Sovjetski su agenti neprestano probijali zapadnjački sigurnosni bedem. No toga ljeta njihova najvažnija operacija nije tekla baš glatko.
There were several attempts to have a meeting and she had to come to the place several times.
Mlada žena iz autobusa radila je za sovjetsku tajnu službu.
She was just a courier whose job was to take the information from the agent who was not identified to her.
Američka komunistica Lona Cohen zašla je u sobu zrcala, zbunjujući svijet špijunaže. Zaputila se u tajno vojno postrojenje u Los Alamosu, rodno mjesto atomske bombe.
Security at Los Alamos was very tight. Passes were restricted. Los Alamos as a name didn't exist. It was box 1663. On people's birth certificates, it said, baby born box 1663. No word of Los Alamos could be used outside. Letters were censored. They would arrive with big holes cut out of them. It was very, very tight security here.
Prva atomska bomba koju su od milja zvali debeljkom bila je najveća vojna tajna svih vremena. Tajni je naziv cijele operacije bio projekt Manhattan, no od samog početka sovjetske su službe budno pratile provedbu tog projekta.
There were 29 sources in Los Alamos, in the American nuclear center. 29 sources channeling information to the Soviet Union.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
U Moskvi su strance koji su bili na strani Sovjetskog saveza nazivali suputnicima.
И они были убеждены о том, что этот строй, эта страна, эта идеология, это направление в развитии общества их увлекает и интересует. И поэтому они пошли на то, чтобы служить этому обществу, причем бесплатно, безвозмездно.
Ti su suputnici SSSR smatrali svojom ideološkom domovinom, a neki su od njih bili spremni žrtvovati život špionirajući za KGB. Ovo je stan slavnog britanskog špijuna Kima Philbya. Obavještajne pobjede KGB-a često su ovisile o strancima poput Philbya, kojeg su vrbovali još dok je bio student. Njegova je odanost partiji bila neupitna i potpuna.
What he said that in your life you choose one side of the road, how to go. It's possible that it could be wrong side, but anyway you follow your side to the end.
Philbijev prijatelj George Blake, Nizozemac po rođenju, izdao je svoju drugu domovinu Veliku Britaniju zbog svojih komunističkih uvjerenja.
I justified it in my mind by believing that I was helping in a small way in building a new society. And I think it is never wrong to give your life to a noble ideal and to a noble experiment, even if it didn't succeed.
Plemeniti komunistički eksperiment započeo je godine 1917. boljševičkom revolucijom. Iste godine započinje i priča o sovjetskim tajnim službama. Vođa revolucije bio je Vladimir Ilić Lenjin. Jedan od njegovih prvih poteza bilo je osnivanje organizacije koja je bila preteča KGB-a.
Советская служба безопасности была создана декретом Владимира Ильича Ленина 20 декабря 1917 года. Она называлась Всероссийская чрезвычайная комиссия по борьбе с контрреволюцией и саботажем.
Čeka je širila strah od stranih špijuna i sabotera kako bi opravdala sve strožu kontrolu nad stanovništvom. Ubrzo su uslijedile premetačine kuća, arbitrarna uhićenja i montirani sudski procesi. Građani Sovjetskog saveza brzo su shvatili da treba strahovati od odlaska na trg Lubjanka, gdje se nalazilo novo sjedište sovjetske tajne službe. Njezin zloglasni šef, Felix Dzeržinski, razvio je nove tehnike ispitivanja. Kad bi se našli u njegovim ćelijama, svi su sve priznavali, bili krivi ili nedužni. Za mnoge je Lubjanka bila posljednja postaja prije izlaska pred streljački stroj ili dugog marša prema logorima u koje se slijevala milijunska rijeka ljudi koji su postajali robovskom radnom snagom sovjetskog sustava.
500,000 people in the KGB were primarily spying on Russians. If you put together the border guards and the regular second chief director and the fifth director and the surveillance directorate and the wiretap directorate, the numbers reach 500,000 people. Only 10,000 on their foreign espionage network.
Sovjetskim je tajnim službama bilo iznimno teško provoditi operacije izvan vlastitih granica. Strane su organizacije sve sovjetske građane smatrale potencijalnim špijunima, zato su se Sovjeti morali dati u potragu za inozemnim istomišljenicima. Nedugo prije njegove smrti u jednoj moskovskoj bolnici, KGB je obavio razgovor s jednim od njih, ali isključivo u povijesne svrhe. Bio je to Amerikanac koji je radio za KGB. Veći dio karijere Morisa Cohena još uvijek je obavijen velom tajne.
You asked about these meetings. I told you that we had to go to Japan.
KGB-ov je ispitivač želio da Cohenove tajne to i ostanu.
I'm not sure now whether to speak about Japan at all because it didn't involve. Leave it alone. All right. Not to. Yes.
Morris Cohen rođen je u New Yorku. Često je isticao kako su velika nezaposlenost i siromaštvo kojima je svjedočio 30. godina 20. stoljeća u doba velike ekonomske krize bile njegova politička škola.
This is the era of the Depression. Everything about the West was put in question. Everything. From our values to our economy, people were looking for answers to problems that they couldn't solve.
Morris was a communist. He was a member of the Communist Party before he left for Spain.
U Španjolskoj je fašistički general Franco organizirao vojnu pobunu protiv Socijalističke republike u Madridu. Franka su potpomagali Mussolini i Hitler. Do 1936. svijet nije vidio takvo neselektivno bombardiranje u kojem stradavaju nenaoružani civili. Takvi su postupci uvjerili mnoge, a među njima i Morisa Cohena, da se fašizmu treba oduprijeti pod svaku cijenu.
Morris becomes involved in the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. He goes to Spain. He fights against Franco.
Ja, wir haben die Stellung verlassen.
Pjesma njemačkih socijalista slavi internacionalne brigade i strane drugove koje su se kao dobrovoljci borili u španjolskom građanskom ratu. Za razliku od većine demokratskih zemalja, Rusija je stala na stranu Republike, sudjelujući u borbi protiv Franka i njegovih fašističkih saveznika.
Morris, he told me an interesting story how they marched through the mountains to the point where they crossed the Spanish frontier, and there before their eyes spread Spain, and they stood there and they all sang the International. And that was, of course, a very moving moment in their lives.
Als die Sieger auf spanischem Feld und das Tal.
I met Morris Cohen during the Spanish Civil War. Morris was wounded, and we were recruited to train in guerrilla warfare.
Upravo su tada sovjetske tajne službe zavrbovale Morrisa Cohena.
Morris said that he got initial intelligence training in Spain, and then he came back to the United States just to join New York rezidentura.
Nakon povratka u New York, kontrolori su Morrisu Cohenu našli posao u sovjetskoj trgovinskoj misiji. No to je bio samo paravan. Morris Cohen dobio je zadatak da pronalazi Amerikance koji su spremni surađivati sa sovjetskim tajnim službama.
Almost all of the people that became Russian agents during the late 30s and then through the war years were in fact members of the American Communist Party.
There are at least, say, 125 Americans who were Soviet agents.
But there were another 100 names that looked like, 100 cover names that looked like they might be Americans who were never identified.
Buduća žena Morrisa Cohena bila je katolkinja poljskih korijena i radničkog podrijetla.
Lona is a member of the Communist Party, and they met at a party meeting. And then he asked her to come and have a cup of coffee with him, and he liked her very much, and she liked him. And he thought that she would be a suitable wife who would agree with his views and with his activities.
She told me that it was both a love marriage and spy marriage at the same time, that he was recruiting her almost simultaneously to be his wife and to join the spy ring.
Ubrzo su Cohenovi ovladali svim tajnama špijunskog zanata. Tajno su se sastajali u zoološkom vrtu u Bronxu, gdje su stupali u kontakt sa sovjetskim kontrolorima i preuzimali nove zadatke.
The KGB and GRU had a great interest in what might be called industrial espionage, things like automobiles, automobile engines, synthetic rubber processes, petroleum refining processes, and however much more secret area, of course, the development of American military aircraft.
Kad je izbio Drugi svjetski rat, Lona je radila u tvornici zrakoplova. Sudjelovala je u krađi nacrta i dijelova oružja za Sovjete. Lona je počela igrati sve istaknutiju ulogu u tom špijunskom braku.
Who was the assistant and who was the main actor it was a bit more difficult to decide, because she was a very, very resolute woman and very determined, and he was a rather retiring person.
Kad se Amerika uključila u rat, Lona Cohen ostala je sama. Morrisa su pozvali u vojsku gdje je radio kao kuhar, pa je Lona mogla nesmetano obavljati kurirske zadatke za sovjetske tajne službe, putujući vlakom u različite dijelove SAD-a. U to su vrijeme Sovjeti već naslučivali da se u Los Alamosu radi na projektu proizvodnje atomske bombe. Moskva je svoju akciju praćenja projekta u Los Alamosu nazvala golemom operacijom.
This was a huge national priority. The special group was set up in the Soviet Intelligence Directorate, headed by my father, to analyze all the materials that were relating to the possibility of the use of super weapons, both by the Germans and by our allies.
Dužnosnici sovjetskih tajnih službi koji su pokrivali Los Alamos znali su da Amerikanci imaju Ahilovu petu. Bio je to mladenački idealizam briljantnih mladih znanstvenika koji su tamo bili zaposleni. Mnogi su od njih bili iz stranih zemalja.
Remember, numbers of these had seen fascism up close and were afraid of it. The Spanish Civil War was an example of that, and so communism was quite attractive. Robert Oppenheimer, the director of the project, had leftist leanings. One of his early girlfriends was a communist. His brother had married a communist.
Nisu svi bili komunisti. Mnogi su od njih vjerovali kako znanstvene spoznaje trebaju pripadati cijelom čovječanstvu. Drugi su smatrali kako će atomska bomba u američkim i britanskim rukama značiti prijetnju svjetskom miru. Svaki od njih imao vlastite razloge zbog kojih je odavao informacije Sovjetima.
This is the document signed by my father. It's the enumeration of 33 scientific reports that are channeled to the administration of the atomic project.
Svi obavještajni materijali o atomskoj bombi stizali su u ovu kuću u predgrađu Moskve. U njoj su vrhunski sovjetski znanstvenici nastojali održati korak s Amerikancima i izraditi atomsku bombu. Zahvaljujući ruskim špijunima i stranim izdajicama, prava rijeka obavještajnih informacija nalazila je svoj put do radnog stola akademika Igora Kurčatova. Uz pomoć povjerljivih podataka s projekta Manhattan, Kurčatov i njegovi znanstvenici trebali su Sovjetima uštedjeti milijarde rubalja i godine istraživanja.
All this is coming both from Los Alamos and from Britain, where the Soviet Union had its trusted agents who were operating throughout several years.
Najvrijedniji izvor informacija bio je jedan od najboljih fizičara koji su surađivali na projektu Manhattan. Zvao se Klaus Fuchs.
Practically, he gave all the information about the first uranium bomb and plutonium bomb. He gave the all theoretical basis.
A onda je KGB iznenada izgubio vezu s Fuchsom. Dotok informacija bio je prekinut, a sovjetski program za proizvodnju atomske bombe zaustavljen. Telefoni na radnom stolu akademika Kurčatova prestali su zvoniti. Nije bilo vremena za gubljenje, pa su se dva ruska špijuna sastala s američkim agentom u jednom njujorškom restoranu.
I didn't know anything about Lona Cohen, and only they showed me her picture.
Lona Cohen trebala je obaviti iznimno važan zadatak.
Lona was sitting in the middle, and she was very nervous.
Dao joj je znak da je ne prate.
I gave sign that everything was clear. I just took off my hat.
I tako je Lona Cohen otputovala u Novi Meksiko. Jedne nedjelje u sveučilišnom kampusu čekala da se pojavi suradnik. Dogovorili su se da se sastanu rano jutro, kad još nema mnogo ljudi.
Finally, she saw a very young man, and she just said that he was very tall and very young.
Sastala se s briljantnim mladim fizičarem Tedom Hallom.
Ted Hall, who's a senior physics student in Harvard, and he decides for a senior project he's going to go down and build the atomic bomb. I mean, you know, what'd you do on your senior sabbatical? And he goes down there, and my God, his job is to be right involved with building the implosion device for the atomic bomb. What's remarkable about Ted Hall, at 19 years old, he decides that the United States, if they win the war, will become fascist. And so to prevent that, he decides that he's going to give the atomic bomb to Russia to stop the United States from becoming fascist. I wonder who he asked.
Nakon sastanka u kampusu, Lona Cohen požurila se na željezničku postaju. Bilo je ratno vrijeme, pa je posvuda bilo vojne policije.
Security was very tight. Security officer came to her to examine her luggage. She had a small suitcase, a handbag, and a box of Kleenex.
Lona je pribavljene dokumente skrila na dno kutije ispod papirnatih rupčića.
She just handed this box to the policeman, and then she started looking into her bag for the ticket.
Suitcase was finally opened. A handbag was searched, and she boarded the train.
And only then did she remember that she left the Kleenex box.
In comes a security guard and hands her the Kleenex box.
And said, "Ma'am, you have left your box behind."
Sovjetske tajne službe nikad nisu objavile što je točno Lona Cohen sakrila u kutiji papirnatih rupčića. KGB-ov časnik koji je bio zadužen za tu operaciju poslije je izjavio kako je sigurno da bi zbog toga završila na električnoj stolici.
According to archives, the Soviet intelligence reported around 300 documents. The reports of key American scientists who were involved in the project.
Dijelom zahvaljujući i Loni Cohen, slika je bila upotpunjena. Sovjeti su doznali sve što im je bilo potrebno da detoniraju vlastitu atomsku bombu.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The bomb that the Soviets detonated in 1949 was an exact copy of the bomb that's sitting right behind me now.
When Soviet atom bomb on 29th of August 1949 was exploded, Stalin said, you know, if we were late about a year and a half, about 2 years, we would feel American atom bomb on our shoulders.
So that espionage effort shortened that period of time that allowed them to become the world power that Stalin wanted them to be.
Hladni je rat prešao u posve novu fazu. U stožeru FBI-a u Washingtonu počeo je lov na izdajice koji su Sovjetima odali tajnu atomske bombe.
Let me tell you this, Venona was one of the deepest secrets inside the FBI. I worked on the Venona project, and I thought it would never become public. It was a real secret.
FBI je analizirao sovjetske brzojave koji su iz SAD-a putovali u SSSR.
The Soviet cables look exactly like an ordinary telegram, except that instead of being in plain text, the message was in cipher in five letter groups, as a matter of fact.
Projekt Venona imao je za cilj dešifriranje brzojava i otkrivanje špijuna. Tisuće šifriranih brzojava ubačene su u strojeve za dešifriranje prije nego što je pokojni Cecil Phillips došao do ključnog otkrića.
In in 1944, I found an indicator in the KGB messages which allowed us for the first time to solve something that was of interest.
In one set of messages, he found that there appeared to be too many sixes. If these were truly random numbers, 1/10 of the numbers in these groups should have been sixes.
Venona je počela davati prve rezultate. Postupno su počeli razotkrivati tajne. Kako bi prikrili pravi identitet svojih izvora, Sovjeti su se koristili kodnim imenima poput Homera, Raymonda i Charlesa.
As other messages were studied, it became apparent that cover name Charles was a Soviet agent and the cover name Charles was Klaus Fuchs.
Fuchs had been on the wanted list of the Gestapo, and we found that the Communist Party was doing more against the Nazis than anyone else, and he became an active member of the Communist Party of Germany, and that put him on the wanted list of the Gestapo.
Fuchs je uhićen u Engleskoj. Sve je priznao. Fuchsovo uhićenje bilo je prvi veliki uspjeh u sklopu operacije Venona. Ipak, tijekom provedbe projekta Venona, KGB je imao dvostrukog agenta koji je radio u britanskom veleposlanstvu.
He was an up-and-coming star in MI6 and might someday be the head of MI6, and his name was Kim Philby.
Ta zvijezda u usponu britanske tajne službe bio je prikriveni komunist koji je u tajnosti radio za Sovjete.
Kim Philby had come to the United States in October of 1949 specifically to help exploit the intelligence we were getting through Venona. Philby was provided an office in the FBI headquarters to look at the Venona material.
Philby's access to Venona meant that he would have been able to monitor the exact progress of breaking out names and identifying people as spies.
That was the best of all worlds and the worst of all worlds. If they have this intelligence, if they now know what we know about their operations, they have to decide which of their agents do they exfiltrate, which one do they break contacts with.
Lanac priznanja i uhićenja doveo je FBI do neupadljiva njujorškog bračnog para, Juliusa i Ethel Rosenberg. Suđenje Rosenbergovima bio je špijunski proces stoljeća. I danas su mnogi uvjereni kako je bila posrijedi zloraba prava. Danas znamo da je Rosenberg bio špijun koji je Sovjetima odao neprocjenjive, povjerljive podatke o radaru i sonaru. No KGB-ov časnik s kojim je surađivao tvrdi kako on nije imao veze s prikupljanjem informacija o atomskoj bombi.
When they tried Rosenberg, they accused him of what he was not guilty of, stealing atom bomb. But he never did it. He didn't understand anything about atom bomb.
I tako su u ozračju nacionalne histerije Julius i Ethel Rosenberg osuđeni na smrt. Da su otkrili ono što su znali, sačuvali bi živu glavu, no oni su vjerovali u komunizam i otišli na električnu stolicu ne progovorivši.
America wanted to kill somebody for the fact that Soviet Union so quickly built atom bomb.
Zar sovjetske tajne službe nisu uspjele na vrijeme upozoriti Rosenbergove ili su pokušavale zataškati ono što su znale o projektu Venona?
It appears as if they were very late in alerting the Rosenbergs to the fact that we had information about their operations. What they did do is that they made sure they got the Cohens out of New York.
U lipnju 1950. svega nekoliko dana nakon uhićenja Rosenbergovih, ruski je špijun posjetio supružnike Cohen u njihovu stanu.
Lorna told me that Yuri Sokolov came to their apartment and that they were afraid that the apartment was bugged and they were just writing and not talking. And he told them that it's too dangerous for them to stay and they have to leave. Lorna at first reacted to it rather violently that she didn't want to go. And Morris also said that they were Americans and they loved America and wanted to stay in their own country. But then Sokolov just wrote that it was an order.
Jack Bijosi bio je posljednji čovjek koji je Cohenove vidio u New Yorku.
Lona did not have proper clothes. She came to our apartment and asked my wife if she can pick up some things to wear. They said they were going on a holiday, last minute arrangements. That was the last I saw them.
Cohenovi su nestali iza željezne zavjese. U sljedećih 6 godina obavili su više zadataka unutar granica Sovjetskog saveza, no što su sve radili za KGB još je uvijek tajna. U tom razdoblju zapadne tajne službe nisu uspijevale pronaći djelotvoran odgovor na sovjetske sigurnosne mjere. Zapadnim je špijunima bilo teško djelovati u Rusiji. Kamo god bi krenuli, pratili su ih. Agente su strogo pokrivali. Njihovi su lokalni suradnici bili dobro poznati. George Blake u to je vrijeme još radio za britansku tajnu službu.
I must say that at that time it was extremely difficult both for the British Secret Service and for the American Secret Service to get access to Soviet information in Russia.
George Blake je 1953. godine bio član skupine britanskih dužnosnika koji su se vraćali iz Sjeverne Koreje. Blake, koji na ovoj snimci ljubi svoju majku, bio je britanski špijun koji je djelovao pod diplomatskom krinkom. No nitko nije ni slutio da je Blake promijenio stranu.
The relentless bombing of small Korean villages by enormous American flying fortresses, it made me feel ashamed of belonging to the West. And I felt I was committed on the wrong side. And that's what made me decide to change sides.
Blake se vratio u London, nastavivši raditi za tajne službe. U ovoj zgradi pratio je jednu od najopsežnijih tajnih operacija hladnog rata.
I had attended a very high-level meeting in the house where our section was situated, Carlton Gardens, attended by high officials of the CIA and SIS, with the idea of digging a tunnel to Soviet telephone cables in East Germany, so we can tap either East German official lines or Soviet lines. And I was taking the minutes of the meeting, as a result of which I knew about the whole plan, and it wasn't very difficult to make additional carbon copy.
Blake se sastao s KGB-ovim agentom u londonskom autobusu.
I was so impressed by the importance of these documents. I have got from George were in originals. There were two major documents, exact plans of not only of the building of the tunnel, but also of the machinery which will be then involved in that. If we haven't discovered the tunnel, it would function for years and assemble enormous number of information.
No KGB je morao biti iznimno oprezan kako, otkrivajući tunel, ne bi ugrozio vlastitog suradnika. Kad su zbog jake kiše izvirili neki kabeli, KGB-u se pružila sjajna zgoda.
And actually, some of the telephone lines were suffered because of these heavy rains. And so it was quite natural for our teams to sneak around and to look for the safety of the lines.
Tako je KGB zabilježio propagandni uspjeh, otkrivši tunel svjetskim medijima. A što je još važnije, učinio je to ne dovodeći u opasnost Blakea koji je još punih 5 godina KGB-u slao najpovjerljivije informacije.
So I felt very relieved, obviously. And from then on, I just continued to work and I was not under suspicion.
U moskovskoj centrali KGB-a Morris i Lona Cohen trebali su ponovno ući u špijunsku igru. Morris je dobio zadatak da pomogne KGB-ovu pukovniku da nauči govoriti poput pravog Amerikanca.
We met him first in a dacha on the outskirts of Moscow. My wife had to go away on a mission, so I was left with him. We undertook an improvement of the English language in American style.
Da je špijun bio pukovnik Molodi. U žargonu KGB-a он je bio ilegalac.
Разведчик-нелегал в нашем понимании – это советский гражданин, который после длительной и тщательной подготовки получает возможность перевоплотиться в иностранца и выезжает для работы в какую-то страну с паспортом иностранца, выдавая себя за гражданина другой страны.
He was with us a while longer and went away.
Molodi otišao u Kanadu.
We did not know whether we would work together, where and when.
Molodi se nastanio u Torontu, preuzeo novi identitet i dobio kanadsku putovnicu na ime Gordon Lonsdale. No upravo se Molodijevo odredište nalazilo s druge strane Atlantskog oceana. Bilo je to vrijeme kad se hladni rat spustio u morske dubine. Podmorničko ratovanje postalo je glavnim ciljem KGB-a. 1952. godine KGB je vrbovao čovjeka koji je radio u bazi Kraljevske mornarice na području Engleske. KGB je potkupio Harrya Houghtona, umirovljenog dočasnika koji je u to vrijeme radio kao činovnik koji je imao pristup povjerljivim informacijama. Houghton je povjerljive dokumente nosio kući i fotografirao ih u svojoj vrtnoj kućici. Vikendom su Houghton i njegova djevojka nosili fotografije u London. Ispred starog kazališta sastajali su se s vezom iz KGB-a, pukovnikom Molodijem, glavom i bradom.
Полковник Молодый, он же Гордон Лонсдейл, использовал прикрытие бизнесмена. Он был владельцем фирмы по производству музыкальных автоматов. В 50-е годы это была большая новинка и очень популярный вид бизнеса. С музыкальных автоматов он развил дело, потом появились игровые автоматы, потом появились и автоматы по продаже различных фасованных изделий, сигарет, бутербродов, напитков и так далее, и так далее. И он дело поставил таким образом, что он просто стал очень обеспеченным человеком.
Za jednog špijuna bio je iznimno uspješan poslovni čovjek.
Он никогда не просил денег из центра, то есть ему центр его деятельность разведывательную не финансировал, обходился в основном своими доходами, иногда даже и агентуру оплачивал из этих дел.
Sa svojim luksuznim stanom i velikim američkim automobilom nije nimalo podsjećao na čovjeka s platnog popisa KGB-a.
Конан Молодой был очень энергичный, веселый, жизнерадостный человек, большой жизнелюб, наделенный колоссальным чувством юмора, который всегда стремился быть на виду, он никогда не прятался. Он вообще вел себя так, как не должен себя вести нелегал, это по теории.
Njegov engleski poslovni partner nikad nije posumnjao da je on zapravo Rus.
Probably a very important key to his character was the fact that he was a very, very good chess player.
A u Moskvi su veliki meštri KGB-a namjeravali staviti na ploču 2 nova pijuna. Cohenovi su bili spremni za svoju sljedeću inozemnu misiju.
Finally, there was a point when we got to know where we would be working.
Морис и Лона Коэн, тогда было принято решение превратить их в агентов нелегалов. Их задача была техническое обеспечение деятельности нелегальной резидентуры Лансдейла.
Morris i Lona stigli su u London s lažnim putovnicama. Nastanili su se u kući u londonskom predgrađu.
This house is in a town called Ruislip. That's about 30 miles north of London.
Kuća u Cranley Drive-u broj 45 nalazila se na idealnom položaju. Bila je smještena na kraju slijepe ulice, naslonjena na športske terene, a moglo bi joj se prići i pješačkom stazom. Tako je pukovnik Molodi, kad bi došao u posjet Cohenima, mogao biti siguran da ga nitko nije pratio.
He was able to get material from Houghton, which he brought to our house. There were times we had to work through the night, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, in order to make photographs from material which Houghton and his girlfriend handed over to him.
Posve obična kućica u zelenom predgrađu zapravo je bila špijunsko gnjezdo.
Under a fridge in the kitchen, we had dug out a hole in the ground in which we kept a special radio which was in contact with Moscow.
Coheni su susjedima rekli da se prezivaju krogeri, da trguju antikvarnim knjigama koje dostavljaju kupcima. U knjigama su se krile umanjene fotografije veličine sitnih točkica.
They knew, look at page 23 or 66, and there would be certain words which gave the clue to what we wanted.
Susjedi nisu ništa sumnjali, no u Varšavi se dogodilo nešto što će iznenada prekinuti idilu bračnog para Cohen.
В 1961 году сотрудник польской разведки, полковник Галиневский, перешел к американцам и выдал Хаутона, которого вербовали в свое время в Варшаве.
Houghton i njegova djevojka posljednji su put otputovali u London. Britanski su ih obavještajci čekali. Ovaj stari film Ministarstva obrane prikazuje njihov dolazak. Ovoga su ih puta slijedili. Houghton i njegova djevojka otišli su pred staro kazalište. Lonsdale ih je pozdravio kao stare prijatelje. Košara za kupnju promijenila je vlasnika. U tom su ih trenutku agenti uhitili. Istodobno stezao se obruči oko supružnika Cohen.
We did have a strange feeling that something was not going the way it should. There was a knock on the door. We knew that was not Lonsdale. He knocked on the door in a certain way. You could imagine our anxiety. We opened up the door. There was a strange man, heavy set, said, "May I come in?" Well, how could I refuse him? So I said yes. And no sooner did he step in, there were 3-4 others.
Nedugo zatim kanadska je policija razotkrila tajni identitet pukovnika Molodija. No Cohenima još ništa nisu znali.
They had no solid material on us and our background. Who were we? Where did we come from? What was our name?
FBI je godinama pokušavao ući u trag supružnicima Cohen. Promijenili su identitet, no postojalo je nešto što nisu mogli promijeniti i oni su to znali.
They let us know in no uncertain terms that if we did not allow them to take my fingerprints, they would force me.
And their fingerprints matched the FBI's fingerprints for the Cohens, and they realized that they had this remarkable spy couple that had operated in both countries.
Poljski je prebjeg razorio mornaričku špijunsku skupinu, no ugrozio je i Georgea Blakea.
George Blake was confronted and confessed to being a spy on April 9th of 1961.
– 1961. agenti iz obiju špijunskih skupina osuđeni su na britanskim sudovima.
Morris Cohen and Lorna were sentenced to 20 years. Lonsdale was sentenced to 25 years imprisonment. And I stood trial, and I thought I would get 14 years, which was the highest sentence for passing official secrets in peacetime. But when the judge said 42 years, it didn't really mean anything to me. It had no effect on me, because it sounded so fantastic and so unreal.
Uskoro su sva tri špijuna bila u istom sumornom zatvoru.
While I was in Wormwood Scrubs, I met Blake there. We were very glad to see each other, and it was evident when I did see him in the hallway, he was very popular as a human being. There were men who, well, rallied around him.
George Blake se u zatvoru sprijateljio s pukovnikom Olodijem.
He was a very easy person to get on with. He was very cheerful. He was always full of anecdotes and laughing. The other prisoners, they thought, well, what have these people to laugh about? One has just got 25 years and the other 42 years. One of the things he said to me, you know, George, on the 50th anniversary of the October Revolution, which would be in 67, it was then 61, you and I will be on the Red Square in Moscow celebrating. And, well, I said, well, I hope so, but I doubt it very much.
3 godine poslije London i Moskva postigli su sporazum o razmjeni špijuna. Špijun koji je uzeo ime Lonsdale otputovao je kući.
The day came when the door of the cell I was in was opened up, and I heard a deafening noise. Lonsdale Exchange, Lonsdale Exchange, Lonsdale Exchange. Lonsdale swapped. The air was full of it. I tell you, when I heard that, I was in the clouds.
Još je veća senzacija bio bijeg Georgea Blakea.
I must say that in a way I'm grateful to the judge that he gave me such a long sentence, because it made my position in prison very much easier. As a result, I found people who were willing to help me.
Jedne se noći Blake iskrao iz svoje ćelije. Preko zida su bile prebačene ljestve od užadi. Lonac s cvijećem označavao je mjesto gdje ga je čekao auto kojim će pobjeći. Blake se skrivao u kući koja je bila svega nekoliko stotina metara udaljena od zatvora. Nekoliko mjeseci poslije, krišom je napustio zemlju.
The funny thing is that Lonsdale turned out to be right. And we were both in Moscow in 1967 on the anniversary of the October Revolution. And we did celebrate.
1969. godine i Coheni su se nakon razmjene vratili u Moskvu. KGB im je pronašao stan, no poput većine KGB-ovih bivših agenata, Coheni nisu bili osobito zadovoljni životom u Moskvi.
We were in a certain sense surprised about what Stalin had done, the, one might say, mistakes which fell upon the country during the period of Stalin.
Coheni su počeli preispitivati vlastiti špijunski život.
They spent hours to talk about what's being a traitor. I remember her just staring at me and saying, well, am I a traitor, Svetlana? And at one point she said, but I didn't kill anybody and I didn't destroy any American life. No American soldier died because of what I have done. And Morris was talking about relativity of history, that may be a betrayal at some point of history, may be finally vindicated by history itself.
Even at the end, they're struggling to justify their existence. They made these commitments at young ages. Some of them were looking for the answer in religion and found communism. George Blake, who wanted to be a priest, decided that wasn't the answer, so he finds another answer in communism, some ism that will answer the questions.
A communist society is, in a way, a perfect society. And we are not perfect people. And that's how many, I think, Soviet people feel. It wasn't wrong, but the idea was very noble, is still very noble, but at this stage in human history, unattainable. That's how Philby felt. That's how we all felt.
Philby i supružnici Cohen počivaju na Moskovskom groblju, okruženi zaboravljenim junacima nekadašnje Sovjetske socijalističke republike.
He never thought about himself as a traitor to his country, because he thought the communist, the best society for people to be equal, not to rich, not to poor people.
Both Morris and Lorna regained their American selves to some extent. I remember Lorna saying that she would like to die in the United States. And I think that she dare not tell it to anybody.
Odabrao Đelo Hadžiselimović, prevela Bojana Tambić, tonski obradila Đurđica Mandić, spiker Mario Anduš, pripremila Vlasta Rajšek, obrada Hrvatska radiotelevizija.